Angelina, Jason, Krish. Hello, hello. Okay, there. Brill. Hello, Stephen. Hello, Tom. Welcome. All right. Why don't we make a start, Hugh? You're all set, good to go? Yeah,
Absolutely.
perfect. Well, look, welcome everyone to Ignition Law's final commercial conversation of 2024. It's been a really brilliant year of conversations, and Hugh, the good news is we've saved the best to last, as ever. It's good to have you here. So we're delighted to have Huw Edwards running today's session on Forget Goals and OKRs, Build an Authentic Vision for Your Business. As a three-time startup founder, Huw is well placed to offer insights here, where he will share his own journey, but will also challenge us all to rediscover our passion and purpose and to source wisdom from your future self. Huw, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Toby. Welcome, everyone. Super excited to be here. When Alex and I were chatting, I think it was January, he kindly invited me to speak as part of the series. And it's kind of, fortuitous has it's all shown up that we're doing this in November, where's the time of annual planning and thinking about 2025. And so hopefully this topic is going to be sort of appearing on your screens at an opportune time. So let's start here. So I'm not sure if you're looking at this picture on the screen here, if you really sort of see what's happening here. But this is basically a picture of most businesses, right? Where they are, and most people, in fact, most people and most folks probably here is that you're sort of chasing a rabbit. You're sort of in this race and you're chasing this rabbit. And there are so many levels in this picture that I thought was just a fun way to start with is like, apart from there's a big question like, why are we chasing a rabbit, right? Why are we chasing also a mechanical, like non-real rabbit? It seems super arbitrary, but these dogs are really going for it. What's even funnier when you sometimes look at a picture like this is you sort of, the dogs in the back, I don't even know if they know what they're chasing. They're just chasing the other dogs who are also, because everyone seems to be chasing something. So we're going to go run with it too. And then there's an interesting thing here where on a couple of occasions, let's be clear, I'm not an avid greyhound racing fan in any way, shape, or form. But there's a fascinating thing that occasionally happens in races like this. Occasionally, something goes wrong and the greyhound actually catches the rabbit. And by the rabbit, no rabbits are typically hurt. This is usually a mechanical, fuzzy little thing that looks like a real rabbit. But when those greyhounds catch the rabbit, they rarely run or race again. It's like, they've achieved their sort of like their one mission and purpose they had in life and now don't know what to do. And so I thought this was sort of, we see this so often in both business, in our personal lives, as we sort of sometimes set goals, which at times are often quite arbitrary or often set by someone else or what we think someone else wants our goals to be. And then it can feel either quite futile to go chase that rabbit, or even when we actually do catch it, what do we do then? And so from my experience here, there's something usually missing. And that's what we're going to speak about today and how to bring that missing ingredient into a process of planning, visualizing, setting an objective or a goal or a dream for the future that is more authentic to you. And so with that one, I'm super pleased to see everyone here. I would love to sort of kick off, if people could throw in the chat some quick answers to some of these little questions, best as you can. Because I'd love to know where you're joining from. I already recognize a couple of people. I recognize Jason, who I know is joining from Texas. So great for him, obviously. The Ignition team joining from London. And so I would love to hear like where you're joining from. It'd be helpful context for me to know if you're an entrepreneur or business owner. And if you're not, that's okay. It's just helpful to know the sort of composition of the room here. What kind of business you're in would also be just a useful little piece, not just for me, but for the other participants here. And then a final one, which might seem like an odd question if you're not familiar with the kind of work that people like I do. I just like, what's a one-word feeling? I just love, like, give me a word, maybe influenced by some of the activities that took place over the last 48 hours in the US, may not, or other influences. You may still have a hangover from Halloween, a sugar hangover. But please do just drop a few little things in there first. Fresh. I like that, Toby. That's fantastic. Yes, I know Jason's an entrepreneur. Excitement. Beautiful. So this is helpful. Just plug those in there. It's helpful for me to ground, to understand sort of where folks are essentially coming from, both literally and figuratively today. And so with that, another thing I want to do, and this might be unconventional, I wonder if I'm the first person who's done this on one of your commercial series, is I want you all just to take one brief pause, sit back, and once you've finished typing, I want you to just close your eyes for just a couple of seconds. Take a big deep breath in and out. Allow your body to settle. And I'd like you to think about one thing in your life right now you're grateful for. Could be something small, fresh air, cool weather, rain or lack of rain, depending on where you live. And then I want you to think about one thing about yourself that you appreciate. Maybe it's your grit. Maybe it's your creativity. Maybe your resilience to deal with challenges and setbacks and the sort of the storms of life and business. And then take a big deep breath in, and then open your eyes. And if you feel inclined, you're welcome to throw maybe the thing you're grateful for in the chat. It's not needed. The idea there, just wanted to get folks sort of grounded before we fully dive in now. And so you might be asking, who is Huw? I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I am a Brit. My accent's got all wonky from living too long in Texas. I had the pleasure of going to school, going to university in the UK, but then business school in the US, and that led to a business and entrepreneurial career where I both founded a holding company, bought a business in a buyout, incubated, spun out another business, raised venture capital money, spent venture capital money, try to find product market fit in that one business, didn't find product market fit, and sold, had to shut a business down there. Did successfully execute and grow the other business, and actually had an exit in 2021. And that was really very much a part of that sort of 2021 moment of that business, where we had bought that business in 2016 and we had set these sort of goals. And in 2021, we'd executed on the goals and sold that business. I found myself in a really kind of a pretty interesting place. And it's one that many of you may have found yourself in. And this is actually a picture of me in 2021. And so I really had this moment. This was, in a way, some sort of that greyhound moment, catching the rabbit I sort of described, where I really was like, felt like I'd lost my mojo. I had sort of, quote unquote, achieved the goals that I had set out. But I now didn't know where I was going. And I didn't know what to really do next. And I was having sort of, big, existential crisis. And I started to ask, why had I built what I had built? Why had I worked in those businesses? Why had I pursued those particular activities? And I was really struggling. And, some of you might be familiar with Simon Sinek. And I really sort of went down that rabbit hole, trying to find my why and what was the why of the businesses that I had been part of building. And it was a real struggle. It sounds really easy. What's your why? Oh, so you understand why I'm doing things. But I really struggled to really figure it out. And I had this moment, this true epiphany moment, which sort of changed the game for me completely. It sort of changed how I've sort of framed up, all future pursuits, from personal to businesses to new companies, etc. And it was bizarrely, a quote by Pablo Picasso. And this is the quote. The quote goes, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. And this hit me quite deeply, because this felt way more accessible. It felt tangible. It felt actionable. It felt intuitive. It actually resonated with me intuitively, that we are all here for a reason, and that we all have some unique gift, and that figuring that out and getting clarity about it and understanding what that is actually extremely meaningful. It's like, oh, this makes sense. Now I know, like I realize, I think I know why I'm here on this planet, or why I'm doing what I'm doing. But that's not quite enough. Right? To really have purpose in life comes then from sharing that gift, from giving that gift, from sort of, being able to take that and use it in service of other people and to uplift other people. And so this felt very liberating to me, and I could now go to my life and start to go and really dig in and explore what my gifts were, and then also what were the gifts I bring to a business. And then within any business I'm doing in the future, what are the gifts that us and all the people in that business have, and how we bring in those gifts together to, uplift that business and make that business a success. And so this was a real, key component. I had a long time, quick poll here. How many people here have core values in the business they're working, their company they're working at, or whatever? Maybe show of hands, or put in the chat if you have, you're familiar with the idea of core values. That's an area that I feel like is pretty well done. I think most companies now have done a good job of core values, even as they're, in a startup, sort of clarifying what are some of the things that we stand for. But this is, and I had operated with, based on my values for a long time, but it just wasn't quite enough. That's where this missing piece of, I wasn't really harnessing this passion and purpose that truly comes from actually getting clear about your gifts. And so then when you take those two things together, though, so I'm making a big assumption, which I think is a fair assumption in the current day, that you have a sense of your values in your business and how it operates and the personal values that you live by. If you can start to really tap in and get clear on your gifts, and then now use that to start to create a real vision for the future that is both harnessing those gifts, and it's living, it's in alignment with the values, so it's what you're standing for, you can truly build a vision that's just quite authentic, that can actually sustain beyond some arbitrary one-year goal. And so, and that really can be a real compass for the business, a real guiding sort of light for your business, and really a real opportunity for bringing people together. Um, Graham Weston, who is the chairman of Rackspace, a company I worked in Texas, famously would say that everyone wants to be a valued member of a winning team on an inspiring mission, right? You know, you want to be valued in what you're doing. You want to be part of a team that's winning at both your individual team, but also as a company. And you want an inspiring mission. And what I found is that, like, harnessing this idea of people's gifts, you know, the values you live by, and turn it into a vision is a wonderful way to allow people to express that. So I'm not going to really spend much time on values today. I am going to spend a little bit of time on gifts, and then we're going to spend some time spending on vision. And then so the other piece I wanted to say about gifts is that, you know, you might have thought you were coming to a business talk, and this is a business talk, but, you know, there is a lot more in here. And I always loved this idea from Deepak Chopra. I remember seeing him speak at a tech conference in San Francisco once. And this idea that, you know, which aligns with this Pablo Picasso quote, once you see one of these things will start stacking up. So everyone has a purpose in life, a unique gift or special talent to give to others. And this is the piece that I really love here. And when we blend that talent with service to others, and look, any of us here who are entrepreneurs or startup founders or working in entrepreneurial companies, we're trying to be of service. Ignition is doing this commercial series to be of service to its clients and to the community, the broader community. It's like, you know, in any of your work, you're being of service to others to help them. And that you do, and doing that, you basically really can experience, in his words, ecstasy and exaltation, the ultimate goal of all goals. So that's a little digression, but it's really sort of bringing back truly the power of this law of Dharma. And so we're going to do two quick little exercises. And so if you've got a pen and paper, or be ready to type for yourself, because I think the question then comes is, okay, Huw, great. How can I sort of leverage some of this idea of gifts, both myself and in my business? And so one of the first ways that I want to, you know, to share with you is this idea of answering the call, okay? And so I'm going to lay out a few different questions that you can ask yourself, and also ask in the context of the company that you're working or the business that you are leading, to sort of help really bring out, like, what are some of these gifts that we individually and we as a business are, you know, have and want to share. And so the first one is a kind of thing is that, what do other people say you're really good at, and that you'll think you're pretty good at too? It's a useful way. It's not perfect, but a great way to start. What are things that other people are saying you're really good at? They acknowledge how you are bring people together, or how you really delight the customer, or how, you know, you sort of always see other perspectives. Another one is, like, what is that burning desire you might have to change the world? I mean, this is something that we see so prevalently in our startup community, from London to, you know, the US, Austin, Texas, wherever. It's like so many companies really have this burning desire to change the world. And so many individuals within that, it's this burning desire to sort of change the world, to right a wrong that they see. And really, this one is sort of aligned to that one. There's a big thing is, like, when you identify that burning desire, sometimes you just feel the burning desire. There's often so much there's like, why is that important? Like, why? Like, try to, like, okay, I've got this burning desire to help this person, but why? Like, what is it about that challenge they're facing, or the wrong that they have been experiencing, that really is driving you so much to want to right that wrong, to go and fix that problem? Another one, and this can be really helpful in the context of you within the organization you're operating. What do you enjoy teaching other people to do? How are you really, like, so often we're naturally teach, you know, our gifts. right? We don't even think about it. Oh, it's so easy to, like, analyze a legal document, or or to connect the dots in something, or to to write that line of code to express the problem that's being the solution that's being presented. And often you don't realize how easy that is, and often find how much you enjoy actually teaching that to other people. Another one is something, what have you learned a lot about, but you'd love to learn more about? Like, this is tying in, I think Toby talked about at the beginning, this is crossing the sort of purpose to passion element of here. So often there's like, we have this sort of compulsion. We just can't help wanting to learn more about something. And that's often because there is this inherent thing that we see in it that we have a natural affinity and a gift there, and we want to give it more. We want to learn more. We just want to get better and better at giving that thing that we inherently already have. Another one that is really cool, and this one is cool from a business lens. It's like, what is the strength you got from going through a really difficult life experience? So often we see this when startup founders in their second business, often, right? They sort of have a real challenges in their first business, or there may be a startup failure, and like maybe something they've gone through in that one that then really, see, out of that struggle has become a gift. And sometimes that might just be a personal struggle of you within the confines of a really challenging circumstance within the business or in your life, that as a result, you come out with so much maybe insight and wisdom, that is something that is truly a gift that you can now go and share with other people. And the other one is sometimes we get so hung up on changing the world is going to be, and sometimes that can feel intangible, right? It's like, I don't know what I'm trying to save the world. So sometimes it's easy to look close to home. What is something you care enough about to act in your community? Maybe it's related to how you choose to volunteer in your life. Maybe it's with your company and how it chooses to, as a company, volunteer its time or volunteer its energy, or expertise, in order to help others, maybe more locally in the community. Maybe, I know a lot of firms might do pro bono work to particular segments that, or businesses or nonprofits or organizations that may historically not have had access, or been able to maybe afford to invest in that kind of service. So that's another area to sort of see, is like, where are you feeling moved? Maybe not moved to change the world, but moved to sort of like help your community. Often these gifts we have are often something we received from someone else. And that you'd often like to also, having received this gift, want to pass it on. And that could be something you received from a parent or an elder in your family or in your community. It could also be something from the mentor in your first job. That's sort of that truly is a gift that you sort of have, like, now want to go and share with others. It was so meaningful to you that you want to go share it with others. And so this brings up a pretty interesting question right now. How many here are familiar with the idea of StrengthsFinder? Like, a lot of companies have used StrengthsFinder. Okay, seen a few hands. It's a pretty common thing as well. Like, oh, what are you just, if we're just focused on looking about what you're good at, it can really be this, there's this big thing, is like, is this just something that I'm good at because I've done it a bunch, but I don't actually take true joy, or I'm truly sort of lit up by it? And whereas when you really tune in things that your gift, it's almost like endless energy. And so, a strength or an ability can be something you can do, right? But often it doesn't really increase your energy. Certainly over the long term, it becomes draining week over week, month over month, year over year. And often that strength isn't always connected to a purpose. It's just something you're just good at. Hey, you got your 10,000 hours in Excel. You're pretty good in Excel, but like your Excel wizard skill is not the gift that you were born, here for and want to go and share with others. Whereas the gift is truly then something. So if you're going through some of the things that have come out from that last list of questions, and you're trying to tease out what are some of the gifts that I could be incorporating more individually, and what are some of the gifts in our organization, like it's got to be something more that you love to do, and that it increases your energy when you do it. And it is this whole idea, this is connected to a purpose in your life. And look, I get that this stuff is hard to try to figure out, right? And I'm going quite fast here. I'm trying to give you a few ideas to sort of spark some ideas right now in this short time today. So you can walk away being like, I got the starting points here. I can go and maybe spend another 30 minutes, of quiet time this weekend and really go and explore this. And so I want to give you one other tool that I found super, super useful. Because so often, if you're anything like me, you get stuck in your head. Like I spent my life overthinking and overanalyze it. And it has been sort of one of the biggest challenges and biggest opportunities for me to sort of tune in, get less get out of my head and more sort of into how am I feeling about things? What is my gut telling me? What is my intuition telling me? And try to tune into those things instead of trying to analyze the shit out of things. And so I want to give you a little tool that can help you. So you have to have these list of questions. They hopefully spark some of the ideas of gifts. You're going to pressure test. Is this really a gift, a strength or gift? Am I just good at it? Oh, it's a gift. I want to give you one final piece of tool here that can be helpful. And this is really causing you to really, when you're doing the thing, that activity at work, and particularly in your business that you think could be a gift, or you're just trying to go, maybe saying, hey, let me just review, let's do an audit of my activities that I'm spending in my week, is to go through this checklist. Okay. And there's two sides of it. The one is for you to think of what it's like living and feeling purposeful, feeling like you're the purpose you get from sharing a gift, versus where it's you're not really, feeling the purpose, while you're doing it. And so these are all more feelings that you can sort of use to sense check and sort of used to be like, wait a second, I was experiencing that when I was doing that thing, versus the other thing I wasn't. So this is one of probably my favorite, is when you lose track of time. It's we think time is this linear thing, 1 second, 1 second, 1 second, adding up to 60 seconds and adding up to 60 minutes. But sometimes, I'm not sure if you're like me, you're like, wait a second, where did the last 2 hours go? And also, I'm sure this doesn't happen at Ignition, but you ever been in that meeting where you're like, I feel like I've been here an hour, it's 17 minutes in. Dear. Fortunately, those meetings never happen at Ignition, which is awesome, and why they're leading this this commercial series. But that's such a good, really dialing in there, because it's also, this is not just a judgment on the organization, whereas that it can be in this case. It's this is a good one to sort of, as a barometer of oh, do we have bullshit meetings in our company that drag on and are not, not really, elevating people. But also individually, where are you seeing time disappear versus where are you checking the clock? This is more in the sense, the idea, we all know this when you're like, oh, I was in the zone that day. I was in that zone that I was in it. It was happening. It was just, it was and maybe time did slow down, but it was, we just know, we often think about this in sport contexts where they're oh, they were in the zone that day. And the opposite of that is sometimes God, this feels quite laborious. This is not really, this is I am having to struggle and wrestle my way through here. A feeling of effortlessness. Sometimes some things just feel easy. And that's another, that's a good way to correlate often between the time disappearing and the effortlessness in terms of a gift. It's it's so easy to you, you don't even think about it, but you're enjoying it so much. You're so in the, you're in that zone, time is disappearing. And obviously the contrast being, it's it's a real slog, right? Another one is this sort of magnetic attraction. When you're doing the thing that you're meant to be doing, when you're sort of really harnessing your natural gifts, things seem to line up. I can't give the scientific answer on this one, but this is just one. You seem to attract the right people, attract the right opportunities. You are seen and feel seen. And you both also, you have those serendipitous encounters. That person you bump into at the coffee shop is the person that's going to become the next client, is going to open up the next opportunity for the next partnership. These things tend to happen. Whereas like when you're not doing those things, it's almost like you're invisible, disconnected. This one is actually really cool because it's actually quite, you know, we were talking about feelings. This one's quite, you can see this in people's faces. You see it in your own face. And if you sort of ever see yourself on a Zoom, and you're like, wait a second, I'm looking bright-eyed. And you know, people might say you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but it's like, wow, I'm super lit up right now. I'm literally like light. It's like the faces versus, you know, we've all been there in that meeting, and whether we're the person or we're seen there, they're looking gloomy. It's like, no, and it's not because they're sick that day. It's just like they're not there. Flow, similar to the zone, but we know that where things just seem to be flowing, it just go, one thing goes to the other. And as the flow of a river, that doesn't mean there's no obstacles, right? There are tons of rocks and boulders, but the water just flows around them. And when you're in that state of flow, things pop up, bad things happen, setbacks. It's just, oh, I'm just flowing with it. Just gonna like, you know, just adapt, respond, go around. Whereas otherwise, you know, encounter some of the time, you know, those days are just so fragmented. You're doing activities like nothing is joining up, nothing is flowing from one thing to the other. This one is a hat tip to J-Lo, famously on, I think it's like America's Got Talent. I think it's the one where like she would always say, ooh, that gave me the goosies. You know, that gave you the goosebumps, right? You know, the goose flesh. You know that like, oh, I got all tingly, like, holy crap, like that was something amazing just happened. And you know, it's like that truly is the opposite of just being totally uninspired. And then finally, you know, one of my favorite ones here is just this idea like of being fearless, even when it's hard or unknown, versus that being constantly plagued by the self-doubt and second guessing. So this is a useful checklist. Feel free to screenshot this. We can also make sure that you get a copy of the deck after this. I believe you're going to get a copy of the recording, so I'll make sure that the Ignition team have a copy of the deck to share with you. But it's like a useful check here, right? So as you go through and go back and say, like, okay, I'm gonna like look at some of these questions and sort of how may I figure out this answer in the call, and I'm gonna then analyze this lens, because it's very easy to go into the trap of just stuff I'm good at because I've done it a lot. So I'm gonna like, what is really the gifts here? And I'm gonna use this this checklist to sort of really hone there. And so let's do a super quick, a little bonus one for you today. I'm going to do a super short meditation for you just to really help you tease out some of your gifts. Okay. So I want you all to sit up, close your eyes, take a big deep breath in and out, and in and out. And now I want you to imagine yourself in your business or place at work, going through a wonderful day. And in this day, you're just in the flow of things. Notice where you are. Are you interacting with people? Or are you on your own, quiet, focused time? You're feeling super lit up. Is it because you're communicating or being, you know, interacting, debating, brainstorming, whiteboarding with other people? Or is it because you're really just got such clarity that sort of your pen to paper or the keyboard is sort of like filled with smoke because you're sort of like putting down these great ideas or writing amazing copy or coming up with great little like new product ideas or marketing campaigns. Just like imagine yourself in this state. You're in this zone. And you look at your watch, it's already lunchtime. The morning has flown by. But not in a way where like, oh shit, I've got so much to do. But it's like, wow, well, look how much I've got done. That felt effortless. In these moments, who are the sort of people you're interacting with as you're sort of sharing your unique gifts and talents? How do they respond to you? And how do you feel as you are sharing these gifts to other people? Really just allow yourself to sit in that state of purpose, clarity, with curiosity that this is a game you can continue to play. You don't have to figure it all out at once, but starting to really tune in bit by bit into these real gifts that you have and how you can truly transform how you show up by giving them. And with another, take another big deep breath in and open your eyes. And if you want to, you can sort of scribble down, a few notes. And whenever you do anything like this, like a pro tip, always, whenever you're sort of trying to imagine these kind of like future states or what you really want or what you're visualizing, always write in the first person, present tense. I am doing this. I lose track of time. And sort of like really sort of you're sort of making it become a reality as you write it down, put pen to paper. But just if anything has come up for you in that short little meditation, spend some time, jot it down. But I encourage you, as you're doing this little exercise afterwards, go back here and sort of really like, what is it? What is it happen? What are you doing when you're in a state of flow? When I'm in a state of flow, I lose track of time when my superpower is helping people. This can really help sort of clarify some of these. And so if any of you are still struggling, and it's okay, this stuff isn't easy, right? The final tip here I wanted to share is this one beautiful quote by Rory Vaden, who's a great speaker and author. And he says, "You're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were." So this is actually something that so many startups have built their whole, business around. The founder had a problem that they were facing. This is where so many Silicon Valley tech companies come from. They were a DevOps person. They had this challenge of this, widget or this particular application or trying to run this infrastructure, and they went and solved that problem, the problem that they had, and then they went and shared that with all the other people that were like them. And this is one here. If you have gone through a struggle, an older version of you, tap into that, because going back to that list of trying to ferret out the gifts, so often those comes from struggles. And so a past struggle that you had, there may well be a gift there. And it might best be this, the way you might feel called to this one is like, I just want to go and help the old me. I want to help that develop. I want to help that junior lawyer, or I want to go help that business who was struggling and didn't know where, didn't have guidance on how to set up their company for success. So useful final tip there about powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. So let's get back to our little pause, breathe there. So the final thing we're going to do right now today is like, okay, so you have a set of values, you've been living them anyway, you likely have them in your business. And now we're really starting to tune into what your individual gifts are. And then what are the gifts in your business? And by the way, this is such an empowering way to work with your employees. So often we criticize our employees, and it's so natural. We call out people's weaknesses and areas of improvement, and there is a place for that. And then sometimes we really, try to harness people's strengths, but something magical happens when you can unleash people's gifts within your organization. And so, okay, we've got a lot clear about this, about you individually and about the people in your organization. So now about building a vision. And so this area excites me so much. And so when you look at something like the Taj Mahal, this incredible, one of the wonders of the world, right? So many things had to happen for this to become a physical, monument, right? Not only did it have to be planned, it had to start in someone's imagination. Someone had to think what this might look like in completeness, and then start to think about all the little pieces. I mean, I'm super fascinated by space. And when I think about like the space shuttle, the space station and the space shuttle and things like that, it's like, what, there are so many pieces and components and aspects here to create this wonder. And it all started in people's imaginations. And if you think all this is woo-woo shit, Huw, God, Huw, I thought I was joining a business webinar this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. Let's go to the foremost scientist of our time, one of my heroes, Albert Einstein. And he famously, so many of his quotes are so sort of what traditionally scientific, as you might say. He, famously says, imagination is more important than knowledge. In fact, it's actually a better thing, and this is a little anecdote that I now that I'm a parent, Einstein famously said, if you want your kids to be smart, read them fairy tales. If you want to make your kids to be super smart and super intelligent and successful, read them more fairy tales. And so knowledge is limited. That's just what's happened. And everything we see had to be new. It didn't exist. And so imagination embraces the entire world. And it is the birth to evolution. I love this phrase. He says, imagination is the language of the soul. Pay attention to your imagination. You will discover all you need to be fulfilled. And then imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. You have to believe it before you see it in action, right? You've got to imagine it before it can come to reality. I also like to say with this one as well is that the bigger the vision, when you really start to imagine it, the other pieces just seem to fall into place. If people say don't sweat the small stuff, whenever I find myself setting 1-year goals and small things, and I get stuck on the little things that get in the way of those goals. But the moment I zoom out and I'm like, what's the 10-year vision? What's the vision for the next, 30 years? And start to get excited. Suddenly, everything else is just the path suddenly becomes a lot clearer. And so it really is, the path does light up when the vision's big enough. And another little quote for you, which is always really ties into this when we really start to think about goals and OKRs. So Tony Robbins is the one most famously saying this quote, is that we overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year. So we all set these OKRs and goals, 1-year goals, and usually we miss them. And that's not to say that's bad or wrong. It's just that we always overestimate, but we actually underestimate what we can accomplish in a decade. And if any people know why that sort of happens, why we accomplish so much in a decade? I don't have a slide for Warren Buffett, but it's all about compounding. It's about doing the small things day over day, compound, which over 10 years suddenly become huge. But it just takes time and it has to take going up. So we have to really stop over focusing on 1-year goals and really zoom out and think about like a vision for like a decade or more into the future. And so I'm going to quickly lead you through just a quick little framework that I like to use that's going to help tee you up when you're now thinking about the vision for your business or for your role within the business. It's a nice little acronym called DREAM. And the first thing is kind of weird, but you've got to decide you're going to dream big. Right? If you're going to create a big vision that's meaningful, you have to decide. You have to say, I am going to make a great big vision. I am deciding right now that I'm going to dream big. Because without that, there is no hope, right? You're always going to be setting yourself up for failure. Then what probably comes is yeah, but you have to find a way to release the resistance, at least for this moment. What if I could achieve everything? What if I had all the resources? What if physical time wasn't the limitation right now? What if the current set of employees I have was not a limitation? Release the resistance you have to all we don't have enough cash, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough time, the economy, tariffs, whatever. Try to release the resistance related to those things that you've already thrown in to say why you can't do something. And then from that place, I want you to really think about seeing the possibilities. This is starting now to let that imagination that Einstein's talking about loose. What are the different possibilities? What if we could do that? What if we could do that? What are the possibilities of these things? And that's really seeing all the possibilities and not judging them, not saying this is the possibility, but then there blah, blah, blah. There's all these reasons why not. Just let those possibilities all sort of like bland as little seeds of flowers to even let bloom into even bigger ideas. Then I really want you to like bring in your gifts here and your gifts individually. But then as you're thinking about your organization, okay, what are our gifts as an organization? What are these unique, talents that we're uniquely positioned to share? How can we bring these into the vision, into this big future vision that is limitless, it is unlimited. And then to the point on compounding, because this isn't just daydreaming here, even though there's a place to imagine the daydream. This isn't just daydreaming. We're then like going to make it a reality. So like how we then take it into like little daily actions. So we're going to do another short little, trying to take some of these tools into another super short visualization exercise. And then we're going to give time for questions. And so with that one, and just remember, in this right now, I want you each to decide in this next 3-4 minute visualization, I'm going to dream big. I'm going to release the resistance. I'm going to let my mind wander to possibilities. I'm going to take the little bits of nuggets I've got around the gifts of me and my team and people. And then I'm going to like, what is then the best next thing I need to do? Okay. You all ready? Great. So again, final one, sit up, close your eyes, take a big deep breath in and out. And in and out. There is so much possibility. Each one of us can be or do or have anything that we want. And with time, we can create whatever we desire and can imagine with our businesses. And so I want you to let your mind wander 10 years into the future. And I want you to see yourself in your business. Maybe you're a lead in your company, or maybe you're a key person that is helping lead that company forward. See yourself there now. See yourself in a state of flow, energized, fearless. See yourself harnessing your unique gifts and looking around at your fellow employees harnessing their gifts. What is your business accomplishing in this vision 10 years in the future? What is the impact the business is having? Who are you serving? How many customers, individuals, businesses, organizations are you serving and impacting? How are you delighting them by sharing your unique gift, solution, product, service? How does that feel for you and your colleagues, your team? What does that look like for you? Is it a big team? A small focused team? A nimble team? Maybe a well-organized team? Maybe you've got the machinery in place to like be super effective and really achieve fantastically large, impactful outcomes. See yourself in that vision right now. and notice how it feels. And now in that vision, everyone else fades away. And you're left sitting there alone, maybe in your office or home, or wherever it is that you achieve this work. And as you're sitting there, you're seeing all this amazing realization of all that you had hoped for and had imagined. And this is the you of today that's sitting there in that future. And then you look across from yourself. And now you see yourself, your future self, the future self that is the leader in this context, that has basically brought all this to fruition. And you look into their eyes and you see the struggles and successes, the highs and lows, the grit, the determination, the satisfaction, the joy from creating this incredible organization. And in this magical moment right now, you get to ask your future self a question. You ask them for some words of wisdom for you today at the beginning of this journey. A few words of advice, the steps to take next, steps to maybe focus on taking each day, the little steps that will compound over time, and ultimately, as you stack brick by brick by brick over a decade worth of days into a great wall that is your future vision. Just know that you always have access to this intuition and insight from your future self. And so you can always go back and have future conversations to really sort of try to tap into some more insight on how to manage a situation or whatnot, or make a decision. And say thank you to your future self, and really appreciate this incredible journey that's ahead of you over this next decade to really build this incredible vision and bring it to reality. And with a big deep breath in, you can open your eyes. And so I encourage you after this session ends to maybe go and write some things down, try to capture anything that came up there. But I want to make sure we don't only have 6 minutes, but really, I want you to be really thinking here this idea of bringing these things together, that you already have these core values that you're likely living by consciously or subconsciously, and likely you're already operating by in your organization. And this was not intended to be the session on values, but then to really, bring the gifts in, your unique gifts and the gifts of your people on your team, and sort of the unique gift that your company organization really has to share, and then to bring that together to build a really compelling vision. And so with that, I'm going to stop screen sharing so I can take some Q&A. Feel free to
thank you.
Yeah, Toby, feel free to people raise their hands or throw a question in the chat if you don't want to unmute. But would love to take some questions and see how, how I can help you.
Yeah, Huw, that was really good. I think it's probably fair to say, I probably speak on behalf of everyone here that I wasn't checking the clock during that session, so it was it was really insightful. My question to you is, and I'm an optimist here, but this is going to sound like a slightly negative question to ask, but I just want to ask anyway. As a founder, as someone who's founded not just one, but a few different businesses, and you've scaled them and sold them, how did you either go about suppressing or managing that voice of doubt in your mind? Because I think, if all of us on the planet were able to do that, we'd all be entrepreneurs, wouldn't we? We'd all, or at least would strive to do things. So I'm always interested in that mindset, because a lot of the things you spoke about there are really interesting, and I love all that kind of stuff. But there's always that voice of doubt is never going to go away, really, is it? So how did you go about managing that?
Yes, it's a great question. The bottom line is you have to learn to do it anyway, even the self-doubt. So that's the first one, which sounds obvious, but like, you can't let the doubt or the fear, if you're scared about taking the leap, you don't have to stop being scared. You just got to do it scared. So the question then is like, so how? And so for me, two things that worked really well for me. One is, what's the worst that can happen, right? When you actually run, I remember when I was about to buy my first business, I remember thinking that, and I was like, what's the worst going to happen? We were borrowing $18 million of debt. We were getting personal guarantees. I was like, which means that we were on the hook to pay back that $18 million. And to be clear, I didn't have it at all. So it was going to mean, and so I was thinking through, if Microsoft enters this industry, and then, our business is destroyed overnight and we can't repay our debt, and they foreclose on the business and they put us into personal bankruptcy, and I was like, well, what would I do? I was like, well, I back myself to probably go and get a job at McKinsey or like PwC or somewhere, like, I was like, I could probably go and do a consulting job. I could probably go and get like, someone might not want to let me manage money, right? And so I kind of worked it through, and it's like, a lot of bad things have to happen. And so that was one. And the second one is, this is a real power with if you're thinking about starting something, the power of a co-founder, right? Having someone else, because so that you can be each other's, like, cheerleader and pep talker, because you're not both usually facing self-doubt all the time at the same time. So it's often easier to, like, you're just having a moment of self-doubt, mate. We got this. Alana.
Hi, Hugh. Thanks for such a thoughtful talk. One of the questions that I had was, when you have your imaginative vision, and I really liked the table, because to me it completely made sense that, your vision and your purpose and your gifts make sense to you. But what is a tool or technique that helps you articulate that to other people, where perhaps it doesn't quite make sense to them, or perhaps they don't have that sort of imaginative scope that you do? How do you articulate that to them?
That's a great question, right? And so I think then, take the vision in work that you have, right? And really, like, you want to ramp that as much as possible so it's clearer to you. Then try to tell a story, right? And when you articulate into other people, tell it in the way of who you're going to serve, right? So when you tell a story, that I learned this quickly, and this is how I raised a bunch of venture capital money, right, in time, is it's like, you tell a story, and it's not, you're always helping one person, right? It's one small business. It's one individual who is suffering with mental health, and this app is going to solve it. It's one company that is like struggling. It's like, so figure out how to tell the story to that one example person, which is why the most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were really actually ties in very well with that one. Because if you were that person, you understand the customer, you can just, can I put myself back there? Tell that one person's story. That is usually a good way to communicate to lots of people, particularly in your company, like, hey, this is the challenge, because it's not some, like, don't generalize to people and big numbers. Be like, there is a small business out there that is struggling. And then you can say, and there are lots of them, at the end, but it's like, tell that little story to sort of get people bought in, and that we're on this isn't an overnight fix. We're on a mission to solve this over the long term, because you want to get people out of that short-termism.
Brilliant, thank you.
Alex.
Ditto that. Thanks, Hugh. That was absolutely brilliant. Really, really interesting. The question I was wondering about when you were saying about that was, to the extent you're happy to share some of the thoughts you've got from your 10-year vision, and also going back 10 years, to Goldman's and Bridgewater and all of that, that place. What are the kind of regrets or things you're yourself would have passed on 10 years from the past to now?
Yes. So I think the probably the biggest one there is I would say two little techniques. One is actually a Warren Buffett technique. It's this idea of the external scorecard versus internal scorecard, right? And the external one is what other people care about, right? And I lived a lot of my life trying to meet that scorecard, trying to either impress my parents or my family or society or friends or whatever, or what I thought others were valuing versus what I value. And so then for me in particular, when it comes to then that internal scorecard, it's really like, so why do we still want to do all this? It's to like impact people and spend more quality time with the people we care about. Like, why do we want to, I want to build this huge business over 10 years and have a, an 8-figure exit so I can go on more vacations with my family. Okay, like, so you're going to sacrifice the vacations for 10 years, right? Like, so is to have to connect it to like, who it is that like, who am I serving and how am I impacting them? Not like, what am I proving? And that sort of like, what am I sort of like trying to get the scoreboard for? And so that's where for me, when I then do like a 10-year vision now, it has things that could be deemed materialistic, right? In that vision or on that vision board, if you try to put it to paper. But it's really like, no, I just want to like be able to spend more time with my family there. It's like, it's like, wow, like what would enable me to take my family with me all around the world if I was speaking places? Not that like, oh, I'm going to be a speaker and speak in these places and have impact. That's not going to be worth it if my family's not there with me. So it's like, or like, what is the flexibility that's mean I could take time off to do these different things, or an organization that is, remote or sustainable, that people can work from wherever they want to be and be with their families. So that's generally how I try to do that one. I'm not sure if that answered the question, Alex.
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you, Huw. That was brilliant.
I mean, I'll happily stay and do questions forever, but I want to be mindful of people's time and Toby and y'all. But I don't have to rush off. If people want to keep asking questions, I'm happy to keep answering. You're welcome. Well, it's been awesome. I've appreciated this. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter as well, newsletter.h3.xyz. I talk a lot about these topics on that newsletter. It's usually 4 minutes or less. It'll come to your inbox. You can just read it online as well. You don't have to give me your email. But if you like some of the topics today, I tend to go into like one little morsel at a time in that sort of 4-minute newsletter. And yeah, so this is a good time. From this, you can always then go and then set, goals and projects and activities to support the vision. Don't just get stuck like planning a goal based on last year's goal or based on what someone else thinks. Like, take a bit of time right now to build that vision.
Sorry, I just want to have a more from an interest perspective from my end. What gave you the urge to want to sign up to and attempt to run an ultra marathon?
Great, I do, and if you do look at my newsletter, I have quite a few articles about that. I like to say I've got some really big demons, and in order to like, I have to run really far in order to like, sort of make peace with those ones. But it's actually a fascinating example as a one where I talk about this in one of my newsletters, so not meant to be a plug. But when I first tried to run a 100-mile race in 2012, I think I was doing it for the wrong reasons, right? Like, I was doing it because it was another opportunity to achieve. And the joke is the 100 mile is the new marathon. Like, running a marathon isn't a big deal anymore. First up, running a marathon is a really freaking deal. If you just like to do that, that's awesome. And I support and uplift you. Whatever speed you do it in, you go do you. It's an incredible feat. But that's where the success-minded person in me went. And a big breakthrough in the last I did one this past summer, and I ran that to model behavior for my son. I wanted to show what determination and consistency of stacking bricks of daily training over and over. My big goal was to run with a smile on my face, even though I was suffering doing it, because it's like, look, this hurts and is painful, but it's like, how do I decide to like embrace that and experience it and then share that. And so that was the huge, the sort of the why really shifted for me there. It was an opportunity. And so, yeah.
No, I find that fascinating because I've completed a couple, and when I've crossed that finish line, if I was offered the opportunity to do that again, the answer was definitely no. So I think it's it's really interesting to hear that story. I'm always
Well, the
fascinated by
final
it.
thing I will say to anyone who's mildly curious there, which you shouldn't be, it's a silly thing to do, run that long distance. It's running a marathon is actually one of the hardest things because you actually run pretty fast, and when you finish the marathon, you are completely sort of spent. When you're running 100 miles, it's going to take over a day, and so it is actually much more of a mental journey than a physical journey. And you go to some pretty interesting places. So no pharmaceuticals or psychedelics required to go and have some. That's where you can truly have, if you want to have some real conversations with your future self or past self, I encourage you to run 100 miles. So.
Brill. I think that's any other questions, guys, or is that, are we set? Well, Huw, thank you very much. It's been really, really interesting. You can probably see from the comments going in that there's lots of takeaways from this session, so it's been really valuable. So thank you for joining us, and thank you everyone for your participation. It's been a really, really good session. So thank you all.
Thank you all. I appreciate you so much and for your time today.